Two young women attacked by a gang of small-town psychopaths seek justice for their tormentors. Sloan and Katie, two young ladies, set out for a rural to work on an eco-farm. They need the money to go on a shopping trip to New York. Some kind of local young men volunteer to give them a ride to the property. It turns out that the men's motives aren't entirely good, and they soon cage them. Over time, the young ladies escape and plot their revenge. Spoiler ahead! Watch out! The movie begins with two best friends, Katie and Sloan, who feel excited about their reaching out-of-town trip. They are going to work for a month at Eco-Field Organic Farms to save enough money to go shopping in New York City. The following morning, Katie's cop uncle, Jason, picks them up, and they will spend the night at Jason and his girlfriend's house until heading to the farm. Sloan advises that when they acclimate to their new surroundings, they adopt fictitious names. The following day, Uncle Jason dropped the two off at a station from which they would take the bus to reach the farm. As a protective uncle, Jason advises them to come prepared with a safe word in case they get in trouble. The deal is that they have to send a secret word at the end of each text. Also, he informs that today's safe word is apple. After the uncle leaves, the two still must remain patient for the bus, which is due to arrive in about an hour, so they choose to remain at the cafe. They instantly pique the interest of two townspeople and end up sharing a table with them. The two women proceed to describe themselves using the fictitious names they set up the night before, while the two males present themselves as brothers, named Jed and Lucas. The brothers volunteer to offer the two a ride to their destination, and while Katie is initially hesitant, she agrees with Sloan's silent request. The two eventually get into the young guy's truck. Unfortunately, things fail to go according to schedule. They finally arrive. The two women are greeted by Jed and Lucas's mother, who welcomes them to tea before proceeding towards the farm. After getting inside, Katie gets a text from her cop uncle, and she informs them that she is all right using the agreed-upon safe words. Meanwhile, the two eat pie and sip tea, which is probably not a good idea at that moment. Their eyesight gets blurred when they discover there is a drug substance in their refreshments. When the two realize something is wrong, they run away for their lives. However, Jed and Lucas attempt to force them out and carry them inside. The next day, Katie and Sloan feel helpless and bound in the midst of the woods. Jed approaches them and informs them that they will now be residing there, providing them with basic necessities such as clothes, a bed, as well as a toilet. We move on to the following scene, where Katie and Sloan are clothed, and Boris, Jed's boss, arrives and grabs Katie's phone to see if somebody knows exactly where they are. At that moment, he realizes Katie and Sloan cheated about their given names and the code phrase she utilized in the text conversation. Katie and Sloan are eventually forced to inform him that the word apple is a safe word. As soon as everything gets restored to track, Katie and Sloan prepare to take a bath in makeshift showers, while suddenly the town sheriff arrives with his pistol. As it comes out, the sheriff is a fake who supports human trafficking, and he arrived to rape one of the ladies. When the nasty sheriff has had his entirety, Sloan pays a visit to Katie, who appears frightened. Uncle Jason, on the different side of town, is concerned since Katie's most recent text uses the exact same safe word that was used yesterday. Back in the forest, Jed and Lucas greet a different client, who will be referred to as a scruffy man. He immediately picks out Sloan and takes her towards the trailer. Unexpectedly, the scruffy guy turns out to be Psycho. Moving towards the cop uncle, he ultimately calls Sloan and Katie's place of employment, where he gets to know that they did not show up to start work yesterday. He hurries to find them, believing that they are in danger. At the same time, Sloan and Katie's situation is going to become even worse when the next customer arrives, even more confusing than before. Jed and Lucas hurry to cover their faces as the following customer approaches. Sloan is picked up by a man wearing a pig mask and taken into the trailer. Once he departs, Katie has the opportunity to take care of the frightened Sloan, but Sloan looked even more terrified than earlier. In the following scene, Jason arrives at the sheriff's office and addresses the town's wicked sheriff, whom we previously encountered. Here we find that the uncle is not only a cop, nevertheless, he is an FBI agent. He expresses his worries and feels like his niece has been kidnapped. In order to make the situation considerably more exciting, the FBI officer settles on to inform the sheriff the way he knows they are in danger simply because Katie wasn't using a new code word during her most recent text message. Moving back into the woods, the sheriff clearly notified the kidnappers that Katie's uncle was an FBI agent, while Katie lied to them regarding the safe word. Boris, the boss, orders Jed to kill them both and discard their remains because he is unwilling to allow the FBI to investigate the human trafficking operation. Katie is secretly listening to their talk. While everything is going on, the FBI uncle decides to go to the cafe where he dropped off the girls. He also questions the barista about what he knows. Fortunately, the barista recognizes the girls, and he knows exactly what type of truck Katie and Sloan left in. The next day, Katie informs Sloan about the kidnappers' intention to kill them, right before the kidnappers arrive to meet the scruffy man. They then depart, leaving a messy guy to keep an eye on them. Katie captures the opportunity to charm him, and when she gets enough close, she cuts his throat using her bare teeth. The two women release their bodies from their chains. Shortly later, the sheriff comes on the scene, clearly to kill them. But immediately after he gets out of his vehicle, Katie and Sloan grab his car. The two women drive back into town and go to the hardware shop to stock up. They then question the cashier whether he knows Boris, the individual who drives the blue truck, and whether he knows where he lives. Uncle Jason gets back his research on the opposite side of town, this time visiting the town's vehicle insurance building. He evokes a narrative about unintentionally crashing with a blue truck and inquires as to who owns it. Boris just got back home. Katie and Sloan had managed to sneak across him and throw plenty of nail-spiked tennis balls toward him, causing serious injuries to him. Boris begs for his life, even providing his money as a substitute for his life. Uncle Jason then drives up in the direction of Boris's house. Inside, Katie and Sloan question him regarding the persona of the man wearing a pig mask. When Boris fails to reveal it, Katie and Sloan force an improvised spear up his behind, ultimately murdering him. As Jason eventually visits the house, it seems that Katie and Sloan have already left, and he sees a dying Boris. When Jason hears the roar of automobile motors, he rushes outside. Katie and Sloan drive away, while Uncle Jason rushes the dying Boris towards the hospital. In the following scene, the sheriff reminds Jason that Boris did not make it. Uncle Jason, growing increasingly worried, attempts to contact Katie's phone. However, then it rings inside the sheriff's pocket. When the sheriff realizes his cover has been harmed, he grabs his gun. Katie and Sloan arrive in front of a church, and we discover that the pig mask person really is the town's priest. Sloan enters the church and meets her rapist. With Katie's support, the two closest pals defeat the evil. As Katie and Sloan drive away, we notice that they are content and relaxed. When they come to a stop to get out of the automobile, has been tied outside the vehicle the entire time. As a final harm, they pour fuel over the guy and burn him on fire while driving away. Jason is being held kidnapped by the sheriff. Furthermore, it looks like the sheriff has caught two more young women. Fortunately, Katie and Sloan got there for the rescue. They have tied up the sheriff and punished him with Russian roulette. The two women are clearly insane at this point. The sheriff attempts to apologize just as Katie kills him off via a strike to the head. Later, Katie and Sloan release the women and instruct them to release Uncle Jason. Jason attempts to question the women who murdered the sheriff. However, they refuse to answer due to thankfulness as Katie and Sloan preserve their lives. Next, the two pay a visit to Jed and Lucas's mother's residence and plan to dose her in the exact same way in which she drugged them a few days before. They take the mother to the basement where Jed is bound and hooded. They proceed to strike her son's head using baseball bats, forcing his mom to keep watching. Next, the two take the woman to Lucas, who has been likewise bound to a chair. Instead of beating him to death, they free him and offer him a bat while threatening to hit his mother to death. After Lucas reveals his inability, he is shot brutally. The two women then arrange his body to make it appear as if he had committed suicide. They explain that they want to blame him for all of the murders. In a state of desperation, the mother offers them money if they will spare her life. Instead of forgiving her, Katie uses the lawnmower to ruthlessly kill her. In the next scene, Uncle Jason appears at Katie's home to pick her up. It seems that the time had gone. The film ends with Katie and Sloan being dropped off at the airport and heading excitedly to New York City. We really hope you enjoyed today's recap of the movie, Even Lambs Have Teeth. Please leave a comment below on what you loved about the movie and why. Be sure to like the video and please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing so you don't miss any amazing content. Until next time, light, camera, action. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.